What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Cage My IQ. We are here to preview UFC 274. We're doing our four card breakdown and Ben Nod show. As always, I'm your host, Cage. This is my co host, Jim. How are you doing today, Jim?
Doing well, man. Looking forward to breaking down this card. A lot of fights, a lot of well-known names, a lot of veterans. I'm looking really forward to this card.
Yep, but before we get started with all of that, let's get a shout out to our sponsor at High Tide Herbal. If you don't know who High Tide Herbal is, check out this video right now.
Offering high quality, sustainable products with all natural, lab tested ingredients, it's High Tide Herbal's mission to help others live the longest, healthiest, and most productive lives possible. Their hemp derived CBD products have a wide variety of uses, from helping sore muscles to skin hydration and minimizing skin irritation. They generate results based on your specific needs. Elevate your lifestyle with the new wave of wellness. Visit hightideherbal.com to learn more.
As you see right there, that's High Tide Herbal. We got a promo code that you guys can use at checkout. Just put in promo code CageMyIQ10 at checkout to receive 10% off your next purchase. Of course, this is at Cage My IQ. All I ask for you guys to do before we get started with this breakdown is that if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button down below along with the notification bell. And then, of course, please smash the like button down below and hit us up in the comment section to the right and let us know what you think of UFC 274 and who do you think is going to win on this card. But before we get started, what are your thoughts on this card when it was first announced?
Yeah, I like the card number one. Like you have two main event caliber title fights right there.
Yeah.
A rematch that everybody's been waiting for with Rose and Carla. Oliveira and Gaethje is a dream fight. A lot of veterans, a
Yep.
lot of familiar faces. So you're going to see a bunch of people that you know, a bunch of fighters that you love. Also, the fact that Oliveira it seems to be just willing to fight whenever the contract is put in front of him is something that's really overlooked in this situation. You know, he's only had the belt for less than a year, and he's already fought what 3 or 4 times. So like he's a very fighting championship, and I appreciate that about him.
Exactly. But of course, this is UFC 274. It's going to be taking place in Phoenix, Arizona. This is where, of course, Justin Gaethje is
Yep.
from. There's going to be 15 fights on this card, so it's going to be a loaded pay-per-view taking place Saturday, May 7th at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, the pay-per-view itself will start at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. But let's get started with the action all the way down at the prelims. The first fight that we have on the prelims is a women's flyweight matchup between Tracy Cortez versus Melissa Gatto. This is one of the most interesting fights on the card for me. First, you got Cortez, who comes in at 9-1, 5-0 in her last five fights, where you got Gatto, who comes in at 8-0-2. She's 4-1-0 in her last five fights. And of course, they fight out at Fight Ready MMA Gym and then MSP Gym. You got the fans who are 64% are backing Cortez, whereas only 36% are backing Gatto. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you got winning this one?
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting fight, like you had mentioned earlier. I'm going with Tracy Cortez in this fight. I think that the difference maker is going to be her takedowns and control time on the ground. Cortez puts out more volume than Gatto, but Gatto has the power that you really need to worry about. So Cortez is going to probably, in my opinion, go more of a ground-based attack. She has 12 takedowns in her last four fights, and I think she adds to that number. She gets the fight to the ground, and she wins by decision. So Tracy Cortez by decision.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards that way as well. I think her wrestling background is the big breaking point here within this fight. She has a background. She trains, of course, with Henry Cejudo. Everybody knows the relationship that they have. him being he was best friends with their older brother who passed away, of course, and so he took her in to fight ready, and she's basically harnessed her wrestling background, added a little bit of jiu-jitsu to it. Whereas Gatto is just straight up jiu-jitsu. She's been learning striking on the go, and she's really good with the submission entries, but I feel like she's going to have a tough time with Cortez and getting taken down. You pointed out yourself in her fights. She's had 11 or 12 takedowns in the last few fights, and she relies on that control time and ground and pound to basically eke out those decision victories. This fight's going to be tough for her because I feel like Gatto can stuff the takedown entries and could lock in a submission, but I'm going to lean towards Cortez by decision, just like you. I think she'll pull out the victory due to her wrestling.
It's a very good matchup. Two young up-and-coming fighters. I think Tracy Cortez lost her first fight and has been on a
Yes.
9-win streak. Gatto's really good, but there's two draws where she hasn't done enough to go let the judges put in her favor. So there are times where she's a little gun shy, but I do enjoy this matchup. This is going to be a good one.
Me too. But let's transition to the next fight on the prelim. We got a men's welterweight matchup between Randy Brown going up against Khaos Williams. In this matchup, Randy Brown comes in at 14-4, whereas Khaos Williams is coming in at 13-2. You got the nicknames Rude Boy and the Ox Fighter. The Rude Boy comes in 4-1 in his last 5 fights, whereas the Ox Fighter comes in at 4-1 in his last 5 fights as well. They train out of Budokan Martial Arts Academy and then Murcielago MMA Gym. The fans are backing 74% towards Khaos Williams, whereas only 26% are backing Randy Brown. What are your thoughts on this fight, Jim? And then who do you have winning?
I think with a first name like Khaos, you really don't need a nickname, but I
Yeah.
commend Khaos Williams for having a nickname. I'm going with the fans. I'm going with Khaos Williams in this fight. Brown has the advantage on the ground, but Williams has one-punch knockout power, and at times Brown can put himself in bad spots, and he's dropped his hands in some of his fights that can really set up that knockout. Williams has also fixed his cardio issue. Early in his career, he had some cardio issues. When it got into the later rounds, his volume decreased, but he's been able to fix those. He's been able to go 3 rounds. He's been on a roll lately. Just he dropped that one in his last 5, but I have Khaos Williams winning by second round knockout. So I'm right there with what the Tapology community is saying as well.
This is the striker versus grappling matchup, and as we always expect in UFC. You got Randy Brown. He has high level jiu-jitsu. He's been ever going with working on his striking. He's pretty good with takedowns. He's when he gets the takedowns, he usually gets a lot of ground and pound going. He averages a couple takedowns a fight within that, but he struggled with getting hit with powerful strikers. He's tend to be knocked out in certain fights, and against a guy with Khaos Williams who has a lot of power in the striking, but not just that, he can hit you with a lot of combos, and that's going to present a big issue for him there. We saw that in Williams' fight against Semmersberger. Semmersberger is a one knockout guy, but he couldn't deal with the combinations that Williams threw at him, and that's why Williams won that fight, is because both guys had power, but Williams had the combos going. He was hitting with the 1-2-3, 2-3-4, whereas Semmersberger was only hitting with the 1, maybe the 1-2 half the time. And I think he's gotten better, like you said, with his cardio. You saw against Baeza, it got better over time and wound up finishing Baeza in the third, because Baeza always starts out fast and then he slows down, and he's been chinny. We saw last week he got knocked out against Fiallo very quickly because of that.
And I'm never picking Baeza again.
Yeah, but I'm going with Khaos Williams. I'm going with the second round knockout here. I think the first round you're going to see a little bit of Randy Brown just clinching up along the cage with Williams, doing whatever he can to keep the fight from being like a striking matchup. But I think it's going to be too much because I think in the second round you're going to get a scenario where he clinches up with them, but Khaos Williams reverses position, pushes off, and then just throws a wide shot at him. It's going to connect, and he's going to get put to the ground. I just think that Khaos Williams is on the move up, and with him having great cardio, not great, better cardio and great combination striking, it's going to be in his favor on this card.
Yeah, and he's incredibly strong for the division. Like, he's called the ox fighter for a reason. He's as strong
Yep,
as an ox, and he's got a really good base, so it's going to be hard for Randy Brown to get him on the ground.
I agree there. But let's transition to the third fight on this card. We got another welterweight matchup between Francisco Trinaldo going up against Danny Roberts here. Trinaldo comes in at 27-8, whereas Roberts comes in at 18-5. You got Masana Ranuba versus Hot Chocolate. Some weird nicknames there. You got Trinaldo, who's 4-1 in his last 5 fights, whereas Roberts is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. They train out Constrictor Team Gym and then Black Zillions Gym after reforming. But then you got the fans here, 65% are back in Trinaldo, whereas 35 are back in Roberts. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I'm going against the grain here, and I'm going with Roberts. I have him winning this fight. I think this one's going to be a low volume fight. Roberts has been landing a takedown per fight, but Trinaldo has good ground game and could could outwork Roberts. Trinaldo also does enough to get the win, but I think Roberts has the height, the reach, and the power advantages, and is going to land enough significant strikes to when it goes to the judges he's going to get the decision win. This one could be a split decision just because of how low volume I think this is going to be. But overall, I have Danny Roberts winning this one.
Danny Roberts should have the backing on this one, and like he's a younger fighter. He has the boxing background. He's from England. He has good movement, good head shakes, and then you got Trinaldo, who's the elder statesman here. He has that kickboxing Muay Thai background. He's good in the clinch. But I'm going to go with you here. Like, I originally was leaning towards Trinaldo because I felt like he could do a lot more with the leg kicks to deter Roberts from getting into striking range. But then the more I watch, the more I like the ability to go with the underdog with Roberts with the striking. I feel like he could catch Trinaldo with one of those shots. He might not be winning the fight, but at some point in time, I feel like he's going to catch Trinaldo and put him down. And I'm going to go with the third round knockout here by Roberts.
Okay.
He's not known for the knockouts. He's known for volume, like mid to good volume here, not crazy high. But I feel like at the age that Trinaldo's at, I think he could catch him with a shot that could put him down.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a good fight. I'm surprised that Trinaldo is the favorite, just because of the age and everything.
I think it's because he has with Roberts. You only have to worry about the boxing. With
Yeah, it's true.
Trinaldo, he has several backgrounds that he trains in that you got to worry about. He can beat you with the legs, he can beat you with the hands, but then he can grapple with you as well.
Yeah.
And I think the age thing is what brings this kind of back down a little bit. Whereas to me, he's only like a small favorite over Roberts.
Yeah, I mean, and he keeps winning, and we've seen that age isn't a deterrent because look at
Yes.
Glover, man. He's still a Chase a champ, and still fighting at a high level at his age. So age is only a number, right? That's what they say.
Yep. But let's move on to the next fight on the prelims. We got a men's lightweight matchup between Michael Johnson versus Alan Patrick. In this one, of course, the menace Michael Johnson is coming in at 19-17. He's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. He's riding a 4-fight losing streak, whereas his opponent, Alan Patrick, is coming in at 15-3. He is 2-1-2 in his last 5 fights, coming off a draw in his last fight. They train out of Sanford MMA and X Gym. The consensus is leaning towards Michael Johnson, 71%, whereas only 29 is backing Patrick. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
There's a couple fights on here on this card that I'm like, why is this fight happening? And this is one of them. I totally forgot that Michael Johnson was still in the UFC, just because I haven't seen him fight very often. But I'm gonna go with Alan Patrick in this one. Both, in my opinion, are trending downward in their careers. You just went over their last 5 draws and losses, right? Johnson struggles against grapplers, albeit we've seen him struggle against Khabib, but Khabib is world class. And Patrick averages 3 takedowns per fight, which I believe will be the game plan. This is another low volume fight, in my opinion, that I believe will be decided by control time. So I'm going to go with Alan Patrick by decision. This also could be another split decision.
I'm leaning towards the other way here. I'm leaning towards Johnson. I do agree with you. He does struggle with grapplers, but then on the flip side, Alan Patrick has struggled with strikers who have power. And we all know that Michael Johnson is a really good wrestler, and then he does really good with swinging with that overhand shot, which has knocked a lot of people out. And then vice versa, he's been knocked out as well. And then he loses to grapplers. I feel like he can touch up Patrick in this fight. Like, this isn't one of those barnstormers here. This is one of those fights that you're just like, you gotta go with the guy with the lesser evil here because of them on the lower trend downwards, like you said. I'm going to go with the guy that has the knockout power with Johnson. I think that he gets it done in the first round. I think Patrick does have that chance to make the fight go to the decision with the grappling, but then I feel like he might lean against it because Johnson has a grappling background as well. And I feel like he could kind of minimize that. So I feel like it's going to wind up being one of those fights where they're staying in majority of the fight. And I feel like that's where Johnson is better than Patrick. And I think he knocks him out towards the end of the first round.
I think that's why he's the favorite, according to Tapology at this point, is because people are remembering the older Michael Johnson when he was, or I guess the younger Michael Johnson when he was winning. I don't know if he still has that power. I hope he does, because he is a hell of an entertaining fighter. There's a couple fights on this card that make me think like there's possible retirement fights on this card, and this is one of them.
I definitely agree here. We're taking different stances on the fight. But let's move on to the next fight on the card. This has been a fight that I've been looking forward to once it was booked. We got a men's flyweight matchup between Brandon Raw Dog Royval versus Matt Danger Schnell. You got Royval, who comes in at 13-6. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas Schnell has come in 15-6, 3-2 in his last 5 fights as well. They train out Factory X Muay Thai, and then you got American Top Team Gym. The fans are going towards Royval, 89%, whereas Schnell only has 11% backing him. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I'm also with the fans on this one. I have Royval on this one. Schnell is dropping down to flyweight, which is something to look into. He was, in my opinion, undersized in bantamweight, and I think that this is a good move for him. But he's been slightly more hittable than Royval, and I see Royval getting this fight to the ground, controlling the cage, using his jab to work Schnell up to the cage to get the takedown. And eventually, I think it's going to that strategy in particular is going to set up a late second round submission victory for Brandon Raw Dog Royval. I think he locks in a rear naked choke and chokes Schnell out.
If you look at all of his victories, 95% are by submission. He's one of the submission specialists in the division. He's a pretty decent striker. He can get you down on the ground to get into the entry race to the submissions. And then you got Matt Schnell, who has good power. He has decent striking. He can grapple with you. But ever since he's made the cut down to flyweight, because he's moving down a weight class a couple of fights ago, I feel like he hasn't gotten the speed down. I think guys who are quicker than him have gotten the advantage over him. If you look at the past couple of fights, he lost to Bontarine, who made the cut down as well, but is more powerful. He beat Tyson Nam, by split decision, but then he lost to Pantoja by KO, and it's just been a rough going of his going down. And then he's one of those guys that they made the comment, it doesn't stick around a fight camp. He's always moving around to a different gym, learning new things to where he's not harnessing the skills that he has right now. He's always adding to his collection. And I think that's what's hurting him, is the fact that even though he's got all these skills, he's not making those skills better, because he's always trying to add new ones. And I feel like it would do him well to just stay at one camp, stay there long term, and you might see the dividends of those certain skills getting a lot better. Whereas Royval, he's like, I'm a submission guy. I get to the ground. I know what I do, and he does it. And I think that's why I'm leaning towards Brandon Royval first round submission here. I feel like that matchup that he's had of late has been pretty good. He did get the submission, the decision victory over Bontarine. That was a close fight. He lost to Pantoja. Too. Yeah, he lost to Pantoja, but he had moments where he had Pantoja in submissions, and Pantoja came out and then submitted him. Moreno, I believe he got the injury, and that led towards the ground and pound. But then he looked after that, he submitted Kai Car-France, who's in the top of the division now, and then he submitted Tim Elliott. So it's like, when it comes to grappling, he's going to be the favorite here. And I feel like Matt Schnell is going to want to keep the fight up, but I feel like he's going to have trouble doing so. I think he's going to get pulled down, and I'm going to go with the rear naked choke here. I think Royval's going to lock it up on him, and he's going to get it round one.
Yeah, I think we're right on the same page, just different rounds. To your point about the nomad fight camp kind of thing with Schnell, I think it depends on the fighter, because we've seen Sean Strickland be the nomad and travel up and down, the California coast, sharpening his tools.
But with that, he trains with a lot of the same guys at the same gym. It's just that he goes time to time elsewhere, so he knows who he is, but is okay with helping people out training wise.
Yeah, and Sean Strickland's a completely different animal. I don't know if you saw the DMs between him and Dylan Dennis online, but do yourself a favor, if you haven't read those. Sean Strickland is a savage, like figuratively and literally. He is a different type of person, and you can be a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
But you have to have that mentality to keep sharpening those tools. And Schnell, I think, is just trying to find his way and find a camp that really works for him. That's why we see him bouncing back and forth. And maybe ATT is that camp.
Maybe it is, but I think this is going to be a matchup that's just going to be a disadvantage for him due to the skills that Royval has on the ground.
Yeah, Royval's a beast.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next fight on the prelims right here. We got a matchup, once it pops up, between newcomers Journey Newson and Fernie Garcia. Newson has had, I think, one fight in the promotion, whereas Garcia is making his debut. They're fighting in the bantamweight division. You got Newson, who's coming in at 9-3, whereas Garcia is coming in at 10-1. Newson is 2-1-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas Garcia is coming in 5-0 in his last 5 fights. They train out Impact Jiu-Jitsu Gym and then the infamous Fortis MMA Gym. You look at the fans, 92% are back in the newcomer, whereas only 8% are back in Newsom. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight, and who do you have winning?
Yeah, I think that this one was a tough one for me, but I have Garcia winning. I think that he wins his debut. I'm with the fans on this one. Both have good hands and good grappling, but I think what separates the two is Garcia's willingness to trade on the feet and then take the fight to the ground. I believe that Garcia works the fight. I'm sorry, on the feet and gets the fight to the cage and lands the takedown and controls the fight from there. So I'm going to go with Fernie Garcia by decision, and he quite possibly could break that infamous curse that we've been seeing with Fortis MMA fighters. I think that he's going to get him right back on track. He's going to have a good debut, and he's going to win by decision.
Yeah, I think Newsom has the power. He can grapple with you. He can strike with you. I believe if it's not kickboxing, I believe he has the Taekwondo background. I believe it's one of the two where he likes to utilize his leg kicks as one of his primary weapons to set up the striking. But then you got Fernie Garcia. He likes to get you down. He has that grappling background. But if you saw from his the past couple fights, he packs a power in his hands, and he can knock you out if given a chance. I think that knockout was one of his first. Usually he fights the decision where he gets the volume up. He's very quick with the movement, quick with his hands. But I think you're going to see a trend of what you saw in his last fight with the knockout, and I think he's going to get the first round knockout on Newsom. I just think he's the fighter with the better skill, the better hands, and I think he's just going to be a tad faster than Newsom will be in this fight.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good fight between two fairly new fighters in the promotion. This is a good one to this one and the following fight. You're getting
Yeah.
back-to-back kind of newcomers, which is always a fun thing.
Yeah, yep, and I think that little inch advantage there with the height and the reach will play a small factor in it, but I think it's going to lean Garcia's way because, just like I said, I think it's going to be a thing where that small speed advantage is going to play a factor, and when you have the reach and height, I think it's going to make things even easier for him.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. This is Garcia's fight to win.
Yep. Let's move on to the next fight on the card. We have Kleydson Rodrigues versus CJ Vergara. This is in the flyweight division. Going into this fight, Rodrigues is coming in at 7-1, whereas CJ is coming in at 9-3-1. Rodrigues' nickname is KR. He is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, whereas CJ Vergara is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. They train now Team Nogueira and then Pete Sprott Muay Thai Gym. The consensus is 87% is back in Rodrigues, whereas only 13% are back in Vergara. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I have Rodriguez in this one, man. Vergara's Muay Thai background and power can end the fight very quickly, but Rodriguez's versatility is the difference maker, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Rodriguez can throw at a high clip with very good striking defense, but also can shoot for the takedown without any notice. He doesn't telegraph his takedowns, and he can get you on the ground and he can dominate his opponent. I have Kleydson Rodriguez winning by second round submission. I think he locks in the rear naked choke and Vergara taps.
You hit the nail in the coffin with CJ. He has power. 3 or 4 of his last 5 fights have been knockouts. And then his debut, he lost a close fight to Ode Osborne,
Yeah.
which was also on a pay-per-view. So he does have that pay-per-view experience fighting in front of the crowd. Whereas Kleydson Rodriguez, like you said, he can strike, but his background, of course, training with the Nigerians is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He can get you down. He can defend against you. The fight gets to the ground. It's in his warehouse. And I'm going to go with the third round guillotine submission for him. I think he's going to get behind on the scorecards early. They're going to have Vergara coming out with the speed, coming out the power. I think he hurts Rodriguez early, but I think as the fight goes on, I think Vergara is going to slow down, and then that's when Rodrigues takes over. I think Vergara makes a mental mistake with a strike that he overshoots Rodrigues. Rodrigues ducks, clinches up with him. He finally gets him to the ground, and then he submits him with the guillotine on top. I think Vergara's a guy that is going to want to get the fight done early, because as the fight goes on, it's going to benefit Rodrigues more with the more skills that he has at his hands. And that's why I think it's going to be third round submission by Rodrigues.
Yeah, so we're right on the same page, just different rounds.
Yep. But let's move on to the next fight on this card. We got a heavyweight matchup between Blagoy Ivanov versus Marcos Rogério de Lima. In this matchup, Ivanov is coming in at 18-4, whereas his opponent De Lima is coming in at 19-7-1. Baga is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, whereas De Lima is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. They train out of AKA and then ATT. The fans are leaning towards Baga in this matchup, 76%, whereas only 24 are backing De Lima. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight, and then who do you have winning?
Initially when I saw this matchup, I didn't think that this was going to be tough, but it ended up turning out to be tougher than I thought it was going to be. Blagoy Ivanov is a more consistent striker, but has lacked in the power department. But
Yes.
De Lima has the power, but throws at a very low clip. They're both able to take the fight to the ground and work from there. But De Lima is the bigger fighter and has more power, which leads me to side with him. I have Marcos Rogério de Lima by second round KO. I don't know why the Tapology community is so high on Blagoy Ivanov. He's lost 3 out of his last 5. He's trending downward, whereas Rogério de Lima is trending upwards. Maybe it's just more familiarity with Blagoy, but I'm going to go with de Lima by second round KO.
I'm leaning towards Baga in this one, and to make a point of what you just said, the reason people are backing against De Lima is the fact that in all of his losses but one, he has lost by submission. He's had issues with grapplers who have like a submission background. And of course, all the guys that train Sambo have a background with submissions, as does Ivanov does. You talked about it. He's a really good striker. He just doesn't have the power. But he is a really good grappler due to the Sambo background. He knows how to push his opponents backwards and gets the takedowns. He averages 2 takedowns a fight, I feel like, every fight that he's in. He knows how to get the control time. He's just had the issues with the stand-up game, which is why the Rogério de Lima, with his power, present a good fight against him. But then on the flip side, De Lima has had troubles with grapplers, and then he puts himself into situations where he easily gets subbed because of the situations he puts himself into. And that's why I'm leaning towards Baga Ivanov by second round sub. I feel like he gets the sub here. I think it's by rear naked choke. I just think De Lima, his tall frame is going to be used against him here. And with the grappling, it's easier for a Sambo guy who is smaller than his opponent to get the takedown because he just leans towards him and he gets him down. Ivanov has a lot of strength, and as long as he avoids the knockout blow, he should win by submission here.
Yeah, I mean, we got both 2 premier gyms going up against each other with AKA and ATT, but this is another split for us. I figured this one would be.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was like, Dan's going to be riding high on Blagoy.
Yeah, and I am, and I couldn't fathom going against a spot where De Lima, all of his losses are by submission, and then he got a grappler like Baga. So just like I said, as long as he avoids that knockout shot, which I feel like could happen, where he could get knocked out, if he avoids it, I feel like he'll wind up getting the sub.
Yeah, we'll see.
Moving on to the next fight on the prelims, we got a women's strawweight matchup between Lupita Godinez versus Ariane Carnelossi. Lupi is coming in at 7-2, 3-2 in her last 5 fights, whereas Sorisco is coming in at 14-2, 4-1 in her last 5 fights. They train out Titan MMA and then Inside Muay Thai Gym. The fans are a little bit lean towards Carnelossi, more 55%, whereas 45 are back in Lupi. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this was another really tough one for me, man. But I'm gonna go with Loopy in this one. When Loopy can get the fight to the ground and control the fight from top, she's got the advantage. But if she lets Carnelossi up and stand on the feet and trade strikes with her, Carnelossi is gonna outvolume her and potentially knock her out. And she's gonna lose because of that low volume. I think Loopy does enough to get this fight to the ground, controls it on the ground. I see Carnelossi getting up maybe once or twice after a takedown, but I think she gets outworked more. This is a control time fight for me.
Yeah.
I think it's all about control time, and I think Loopy's going to do enough with control time that she's going to win by split decision.
This was a tough one because this kind of reminds me of the Angel Hill fight against Carnelossi, where Carnelossi, to me, I call her the female Paulo Costa, where she has a lot of power for the division. Her striking is really good, and she's been jiu-jitsu has been ever grown, but she struggled against these grapplers, like you said. Like Angela Hill was able to pressure up against the cage, reversal time to time, and then she had trouble with Estelle Nunez with the volume, but she was able to wind up later on use the takedowns and then wound up getting the victory via submission. And then the fight against she went to war with her. She got hit up twice. She got locked up in a couple of submissions, but she was able to get out, and then she was able to eventually use her power to pick up the victory. But then you got Loopy on the other hand, as you see there. She's of Mexican descent, but she's lived in Canada half of her life. Her family moved there to start a new life. That's where she started training wrestling. So she has that wrestling and jiu-jitsu background. And it's not about volume with her. It's about, just like you said, control time, position, and then just doing enough volume with the control that she has to eke out the victories there. As you see right there, the losses she had were to Carolina and to Penny, which were volume based. But she's been able to beat Luma and Silvana just by her tactics. And I feel like in this one, it's been back and forth. But the one thing that's going to lean me towards the one side is the power. And I think Karnowski has a chance to knock out Godina. She's had a struggle with these type of strikers in the past, and I don't think she's going to knock her out, but I think she's going to win by decision here. I think she does it just by pure volume. As long as she can deal with the grappling of Loopy, I think she has a chance. And then let's not forget that she's been using the takedowns in the last 2 fights as well. She's had 5 takedowns in the past 2 or 3 fights. It's been a developing part of her game that's added another wrinkle for her opponents to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely the stronger of the fighters.
Yeah.
So if she gets taken down, it might be an easy transition to get back up. This is honestly a pick'em fight. I know some of Loopy's losses were on short notice because she was willing to step in. So with a full fight camp, we're going to see the true Loopy and see where we go with it. But overall, I think this is going to be an entertaining fight. And I noticed that someone else referred to Carnelossi as the female Paulo Costa too. So I hope that nickname doesn't trend for her.
Yeah, but I think the one thing that will work against Carnelossi is her cardio. She's had issues with it in the past. It seems like it's getting better, but as long as she can keep that in check, I feel like she can out volume Loopy especially with the power. I think she can kind of slow down Loopy's grappling with the shots, but if she makes a mistake, she has to watch out for the submission game of Godinez, because that's part of her game that people overlook. It's just that she hasn't had a chance to use it a lot since joining the UFC.
Yeah, I hear you.
Let's move on to the next fight on the card. We got a women's featherweight matchup between Macy Chiasson versus Norma Dumont. Clicking the wrong thing there. In this matchup, Chiasson is 7-2, whereas Norma Dumont is 7-1. In this matchup, of course, coming into this fight, Chiasson is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, whereas the immortal Norma Dumont is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. And they train out of Fortis MMA. We got another Fortis MMA fighter, and then you got Gordine Fight Team Gym on the other side. The fans are leaning towards 88% Dumont, whereas only 12% are backing Chiasson. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a split for Fortis MMA. And I have former guest of the show, Norma Dumont, winning this fight. I really don't care about the reach advantage or the height advantage in terms of what Macy Chiasson has. At this point, in both fighters' career, I feel that Dumont has more tools than Macy. She's more accurate. She has better striking defense and lands more significant strikes. Chiasson has the reach and can throw at a high clip. She does have some power, but I think she's outgunned in this one. I'm going to go with Norma Dumont by unanimous decision.
I'm going the same way here. Both fighters come in with great backgrounds. Of course, Macy Chiasson, she's coming in with that height and that she likes to use in these matchups. She likes to press up her opponent against the cage. She likes to throw those elbows, throw those knees, but she likes to utilize the jab a lot to keep that range. I look at this fight and I think if she could do that, she'll have a good time in this matchup with the jab and the low calf kick. But she's going up against a fighter in Norma Dumont who has that Sonda background. It's kind of like a combination between striking and then also judo. A little bit of mixture between the two. It's all about feel and movement with it. And this is going to be a similar fight for her as was her debut against Megan Anderson, where Megan Anderson had the height, likes to throw, has power, use leg kicks, and she was able to get inside that fight early, push her up against the cage, actually took her down, and was throwing good strikes at her. It's just that she got caught with that one cross by Megan Anderson that put her down. I don't think Macy is going to be able to do that same thing that Anderson did, because I don't think she has that knockout power like her. But I do think that the range is going to be an issue for Dumont. But I think she's going to be able to get Macy down a couple of times, use that ground and pound. And then she's been ever grown with her striking. She's been able to put 2-3 strike combinations going with power, and she's been managing her cardio. It's been known that she's got to put back a little bit on the striking to kind of manage her cardio. So that's something where I'm like, maybe Macy might try and look for those holes to take her shots. But I just think that Norma Dumont's going to be too much for her. Even with the height advantage, Dumont has the experience dealing with that, and I think she's going to eke out the decision victory, just like you said.
Yeah, I mean, for those who are watching / listening, if you haven't watched the episode that Dan did with Norma Dumont, I suggest you go back and learn a little bit about a fighter who's poised to be a champion at one point. In her career, she's got it all. She's going to put it together, and she's really going to do big things in UFC. So definitely go back and give that episode a view.
Definitely so. But like I said before, she definitely needs to watch out for leaving herself open like she did. All it took was one chance where she was too inactive but I feel like she'll be fine in this matchup, and she'll get the easy decision victory
Yeah, I think
over
she.
Chasson.
Yeah, I think she's fixed those holes.
Yeah. Moving on to the main card now. The first fight that we have is a banger of a fight in the lightweight division. We got Michael Chandler, nicknamed Iron, going up against Tony Alcuki Ferguson, coming in 22-7, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas Ferguson is 25-6, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. They train out Black Zillions in Alliance MMA Gym, and then you got Knuckleheads Boxing Gym. The fans are leaning towards Chandler, 81% backing him, whereas only 19% are backing Tony Ferguson. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight, and then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this is a matchup that a few years ago would have been a dream fight.
Yes.
But at this moment, both fighters are on a losing streak, and Tony Ferguson's ability to fight at a high level has been questioned, not by us, but by other
Yeah.
members of the media and fans. Ferguson is a durable fighter. We've seen him go to war with Justin Gaethje, with a number of lightweights. But I think Chandler's takedowns and pressure is going to wear Tony down, leading to a third round knockout for Chandler. I think this was one of those. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I think this was one of those retirement fights that I thought could be the last for one of these guys. And if Tony loses, I think this might possibly be his last fight in the UFC. I hope not, because he's a hell of a fighter.
Yeah.
But I think he loses this fight, unfortunately.
Yeah, I love Tony Ferguson. He's one of the toughest fighters in the UFC, but his problem has always been defense. He always takes on 3 strikes just so he can throw 4 strikes back. He's that type of fighter. He's taken so much damage in his career, where he never really worked on the defense. He's always been able to just use the athleticism, use his own skill to win all the fights that he has had. And he had all those canceled fights with Habib, and then he went in and lost his last 2-3 fights, of course, the way that he did, very badly, because of people figuring out that you just have to withstand some of what he did and just attack him as you can. And Michael Chandler is going to do exactly what Justin Gaethje did. He has the wrestling, he has the power, just like Gaethje. You saw Gaethje and Chandler go to war last fight, where it went to decision, whereas Chandler has that big chin. Like, he did get knocked out by Oliveira, but he took everything Gaethje had and still got back up. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think he's going to utilize his wrestling in this one, and he's going to minimize any of the offense Ferguson has, because Ferguson, I think, is going to come in slow. And he's going to have that boxing where he's going to just tee off on Ferguson. I do think Ferguson's going to fight back, but I think he's on the end of his career in the UFC. I think he's going to wind up going to Eagle FC sooner or later, because at this state and time, it's hard for him to change his ways and the ways of fighting. Whereas Chandler has made corrections in his game from a couple of fights ago and starting to transition his striking and wrestling together as one. And I think in this one, he's going to be able to use that. And I got a second round KO here. I think he KOs him. I just think that Ferguson's not the same fighter, and he's going to be put to pasture.
Yeah, I mean, what a transition of a career.
Yeah.
If it goes the way you said, once he was going to fight Khabib twice, and then he goes from wanting to fight Khabib to working for Khabib. Oh my God, how the tables have turned for Tony Ferguson. Shame.
Yep.
It's a shame. He's a great fighter.
Yep. Let's move on to the next fight on the card. We have a matchup between, it's actually a rematch between Ovince Preux versus Mauricio Shogun Rua, number 2 at the light heavyweight division. Coming in, OSP is 25-16, 2-3 in his last 5 fights, where Shogun Rua is 27-12-1. He is 2-1-2 in his last 5 fights. They train out of Knoxville Martial Arts Academy and then Shogun Team / King's MMA Gym. The fans are leaning 75% towards St. Preux, whereas only 25 are back in Shogun Rua. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight, and who do you have winning?
Again, I know it's a rematch, but this is a weird matchup for me. Um, Both haven't fought in a while, with both coming off of losses. OSP didn't do really well in heavyweight, so he's dropping back down the
Yeah,
lightweight heavyweight, which in my mind I think is a good move for him. I think this is his natural weight class. I wouldn't be surprised if OSP tries to get this fight to the ground. Um, and try to lock in another Von Flute trope. But we know who Shogun Rua is. We know how durable he is. We know his skills. We know he's like a Swiss Army knife.
yeah,
I feel that OSP's reach advantage is going to get his jab going, leading to a second round KO for OSP and bounce backs in the win column. Again, this is another, elder statesman fight. I didn't realize OSP was almost 40. He's been fighting forever. I thought he was much younger
yeah.
than that.
They both have been fighting forever between the
Yeah,
UFC, Pride, and then Strikeforce.
for
Yeah,
sure.
both these guys have been around. I think Mauricio Rua 10 years ago, this would have been a different fight between the both of them. They fought,
Five
and I
years
think
ago.
they fought 5 years ago, and that's when St. Preux beat Shogun Rua.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is the fact that just Shogun is a slow fighter. He does things 2 steps slower. He has that Brazilian background, but he is very known for the leg kicks and the quick movement. But he has lost some of that. He still throws the leg kicks. The movement is like twice as slow now. Vince St. Preux can come in here, stand in front of him. He can just use that reach advantage to get the jab going and get the striking going, and then he can get the fight. If the fight goes to the ground, he can get him with sub. I
Yeah.
think this fight goes to the decision. I think there's going to be points where each fighter rocks the other because both of them have a glass chin at this point. But I think Vince St. Preux does more in this fight than Rua does. I think they avoid those big time shots. I think St. Preux plays it safe with the jab and just spams it a lot and gets the movement going. Looks for the sub attempts like last time. Doesn't get one, but then he wins by unanimous decision here. This could be a split decision. To me, this might be a boring fight where you see a lot of movement and then a lot of jabs by St. Preux and a lot of leg kicks by Roya. And
Yeah.
just OSP winning by just etching him out in volume.
Yeah. I mean, with this fight, honestly, the first three fights on this main card are fights
Yeah,
that if they happened 3, 4, 5 years ago would have
yeah,
been amazing. Um, it's just like some of these fights are a little too late. Um,
yeah.
you know how I said it? I couldn't remember that Michael Johnson was on the UFC roster. I didn't. I thought Shogun retired.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it was good right to, and then he's just far since then, and he hasn't really retired.
yeah,
And it's just been a thing of next time he loses, maybe the time that he calls it quits.
I know. And you're about to preview another fight with
Yeah,
somebody who I thought also retired in the UFC with
yeah,
Joe Lauzon.
yeah, exactly. But now we move on to that matchup. The next matchup on the card, we have a welterweight matchup here. Actually, lightweight matchup between Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Joe J. Lauzon. This is Donald Cerrone's retirement fight here. He has said that this is going to be his last fight, and then he's done. He's coming in at 36-16. He's 0-1-4 in his last 5 fights, whereas Joe Lauzon is 28-15. He's 2-3 in his last 5 fights. I believe he has 1 or 2 fights left on his 4-fight contract himself. They train out BMF Ranch and then Lauzon MMA and Skill of Strength Gym. The back end is 62% on Cowboy Cerrone, whereas only 38% are backing Joe Lauzon. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, man. I was shocked when I saw this matchup, and then I read deeper that this was Cowboy's last fight. And
Yeah,
Jesus, man, we can't let that 0-4-1 record, his last five, dictate our perception on Cowboy and
yeah,
how entertaining this man has been for the years that he has fought in the UFC and how amazing he's been. One of my favorite fighters ever to step in an octagon. I'm really upset to see him go. But I have Cowboy in this fight. I think he wins this one. He goes out. He rides out the pasture. Here comes some Cowboy puns.
yeah,
He rides out the pasture on a high note. I think it's going to be closer than people expect. Cowboy has kind of slowed down in the volume output, um, but he's been grappling lately, and I'd love
yeah.
to see him grapple and get this fight to the ground. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they stay standing and they stay throwing. So I have Cowboy winning by decision. This could be a split decision, but I have Cowboy retiring on a high note with a big win over Joe Lauzon.
These are two guys that have been in the UFC for the longest time. Both of them, they have both big time careers. Everybody forgets Joe Lauzon because he started very early,
Yeah,
and he's had a lot of fights throughout his career, but a lot of cancellations as well. These are two guys that have been very chinny, but they both pack a punch when they strike. I think the difference is going to be, to me, is the leg kicks of Don Cerrone in this matchup. He's going to have to lose on. Is going to have to worry about the leg kicks, but then uh, Don Cerrone is going to have to worry about the jiu-jitsu of Joe Luzon because he's very well versed in the clinch-up game of late. But I think the difference and why I'm leaning towards Cerrone by knockout in the first round is the fact that he's going to lay it all on the line. He's a flashy fighter. He throws those crazy leg kicks. He throws those Superman punches. Just he puts it all out there, and his motto is he's going to put it out there to go those highlight victories, or he's going to get highlighted on the other side. And that's just how he's been in his career. It's either he does it or he doesn't. He's not the born fighter where he just wants to go to decision. And with his last fight, I don't think it's going to be anything differently. I think he comes in there and he gets that first round knockout. I think he gets him with a high leg kick that stuns him, and then he finishes them off with the ground and pound to get that one last victory before just like you said, before he rides off into the sunset.
right. Oh man, that would be amazing output, an outcome, and
Yeah,
performance of the night that could break records, and this win could
yeah.
break records. So,
And he's all
yeah,
about it was all about the taking so many fights because of his spending. Like he's the guy like where he's like
yeah, he
that's
loves
why
to
he
buy
always took
toys.
he likes to buy toys, he likes to spend, and that's why he would always take fights because he's like, I gotta take all these fights to fund my expensive taste.
Yeah, and I mean, hats off to Cowboy for a
Yeah,
stellar Hall of Fame career in the UFC. I wish him well in the future.
me too. But let's transition from that to the co-main event of the evening. We got a rematch at the strawweight division between the champion Rose Namajunas going up against the challenger Carla Esparza. This is Rose's one of her last losses in the UFC that she wants to avenge, of
Yeah,
course. Uh, she lost the fight night finale to her when they were both on the Ultimate Fighter. Esparza won that one, and it's been eating at her all along. So now she gets her chance to at the rematch to correct that wrong that happened in the debut. But Thug Namajunas comes in at 11-4. She's 4-1 in her last five fights, whereas the Cookie Monster Carla Esparza comes in at 18-6. She's 5-0 in the last five fights. They train out Genesis Training Academy and Team Oyama Gym. The fans are going 82% towards Namajunas, whereas only 18% are backing Carla Esparza. Jim, what are your thoughts on this co-main event? And then who do you have winning?
yeah, I think it's going to be closer than that 82% mark right there. But this is a rematch that you kind of like led into. 8
Yeah,
years in the making. I love this matchup. Carla has been on a tear, winning her last five, like you said. while Rose has either been defending or fighting for the title the last 2 years. They fought each other before, so they know their skill set. Has it changed? Yes, a little bit, but I'm sure in this division they pay close attention to their opponents.
Yeah.
The difference between these two, in my opinion, has been the level of competition as of late. Rose has fought Joanna twice. She's fought Jessica Andrade twice. She's fought Wei Li twice, while Carla Esparza has been able to dodge all three of them to get this title shot. She's fought Waterson, Kovalevich. She's fought people who haven't had that title shot in a while. And that's not Carla's fault. That's matchmaking, and that's,
Yeah.
fight like Rose fighting championship level fighters. But the level of competition and the way Rose has been winning, I have Rose winning by decision. I could also see third round knockout via head kick, but I'm going to go with decision because Carla is a durable fighter.
Where I agree with that, I'm going to also play devil's advocate with that as well. Rose has fought a lot of good competition, but she's fought a lot of strikers. She hasn't fought a grappler like a Esparza of lately. Esparza is one of the best grapplers in the division. Zhang Weili was able to do pretty good against Namajunas, but she's been growing that ever since she's been working with Henry Ceruto. Carla Esparza has had that background the whole time she's been in the division. If you look at the last fight against Yan Xiaonan, she completely dominated her on the ground. And whereas Yan Xiaonan didn't know what to do, she just got pieced up because of the advanced grappling of Esparza. Then you saw Yan Xiaonan come back and fight a tough fight against Marina Rodrigues in a split decision loss. And I think Carla Esparza is going to come in there, and people are going to be on Rose because of Rose being the champ. And I think Rose is going to underestimate her. I think she's coming in looking for the revenge, but she's also going to come in being, I'm the champ. I should be the favorite. And she's going to overlook Esparza. And I think Esparza is going to come in there and she's going to get that decision victory due to her wrestling. I think she's going to be able to get the fight to the ground. And that's going to be the difference. Her striking has been improving, but I feel like Rose is going to have trouble once again with defending the takedowns. It's one thing to defend Andrade or Joanna or Zhang Weili. It's another to defend Esparza because of her entries. She disguises them better, and then she averages 2 to 3 takedowns a fight. And I think this fight's going to go to distance, and it's going to be a close fight. But I think Esparza gets it 3 rounds to 2 as the underdog here. I think she's going to do just enough to etch out the victory.
Okay, just a couple of things. I've noticed from the years that we've been doing this, you've never gone with Rose Namajunas in any of your picks when she fights. So
I actually have.
Well, I don't believe in any of the ones that we've done. You've gone with her.
Oh, yeah.
I would also beg to differ on the grapplers. We just went over the Jessica Andrade Amanda Lemos fight, and we talked about how good on the ground Jessica Andrade is with her wrestling. And Rose beat her.
I don't think she's as good. I think she's good with the judo throws, and she can get people down that way. And she did beat Rose, and then Rose came back and beat her by decision in a close fight. But I think it's easier to defend judo than it is wrestling.
I understand that, but Jessica Andrade wrestles as well as well. There's a lot of W's there. Also, to your point about Rose coming in here looking for revenge and thinking she's a champ, she should be the favorite. Rose is probably one of the most humble fighters in the game and really doesn't come in with that championship stink. So I think she's not underestimating Esparza at all. I think that she's a student of the game and she's watched this ascent that Carla Esparza has had and is planning for it. I don't think she's coming in with, yes, would she love to avenge that loss? Yes, but that loss will always be on her record. So it's
Yeah.
not like she wins and it magically goes away. I think a lot of people are saying that Rose is going to be this cocky fighter, and I've never seen it. I've never seen her be cocky in
I've
or
seen it.
outside of the octagon.
I saw it in the Zhang Weili fight, and then I saw it in the second Andrade fight where she shows it a little bit. It's not like to where it's outrageous. It's just a little bit. That's part of the nickname Thug is her confidence that she has in herself, and I think part of her like she's not going to say it, but you can tell by how she's acted that she's bothered by the fact that she had this loss to her that she felt like she should have won, and she kind of wants to write it. She knows that it's still going to be there, but she feels like she needs to get this victory, and I feel like she talks herself up into it, and I feel like it gives Carla Esparza that itch to just have that bulletin board material to do it, because she's going to come in with Rose thinking that she should win, and then Carla's coming and being like, I have nothing to lose here. I beat her once, and I can try and do it again.
I think there's bulletin board material for
Yeah.
both of them because once, we see the embedded in Carla's
Yeah.
interviews and all that stuff, she always talks about, I beat Rose, I beat the champion, I
Yeah.
beat blah, blah, blah. So Rose hears that. I'm going to die on the Rose cross. I always pick
Yeah.
her, win, lose, or draw. She's one of my favorite female fighters,
I
if
think
not favorite
this
fighters.
I think this has a potential to be split decision. That's how good of a fight I think it's going to be. Because
Yeah.
I think Rose is going to get her striking going, but then I feel like Esparza is going to get the grappling going. It's just a matter of just like the Zhang Weili fight, last fight for Rose. It's going to come down to that 5th round.
All right. Well, I'm going with Rose as I always do.
Yeah, which is great. This is what we want. We want different opinions on things for everybody listening. But
Yeah.
let's move on from that to the main event of the evening. This is going to be a really fun championship fight. We got the lightweight championship between the champion Charles the Bronx Oliveira defending his title against Justin the Highlight Gaethje. Oliveira is 32-8. 5-0 in his last 5 fights, whereas Gaethje is 23-3. He is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, with that lone loss to Habib in his last fight. They fight out Shootbox Diego Lima Gym, and then Gold Team Texas, and then Elevation Fight Team Gym. You got the fans that are 82%, 72% are back in Charles Oliveira, whereas only 28% are back in Justin Gaethje. Jim, what are your thoughts on this main event? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, I think this is a great matchup. Obviously, we all know this is a great matchup.
Yeah.
Any championship fight's going to be great. But this is a matchup that I think favors Oliveira. As the fight goes on, Gaethje gets less accurate, and his hands go down. His gas tank kind of wears down. And Oliveira, on the opposite side, has a good gas tank, and he tends to thrive in the later rounds. Not to mention, Oliveira has, if not the best submission game in the UFC. It's unmatched. I can see Gaethje using his leg kicks to get in the early rounds to gain range to try and slow Oliveira down. But I also think at the same time Oliveira is going to be able to time those kicks and get the fight to the ground by catching a kick, tripping him, and working towards a submission. And I think he does that later in the 3rd round. I think this fight goes only to the 3rd round, and Oliveira wins by a 3rd round submission.
That's been a knack for him to get into the 2nd, 3rd round and then use his length to get those submission victories here ever since he became champion.
Yeah.
But one of the things that is leading me towards Justin Gaethje's side is the fact that he has that power. Like Chandler has that power. He not to Gaethje's level, and he rocked Oliveira before before the fight got to the 2nd, and then that's when Chandler slowed down. Then you had the fight with Dustin Poirier where he had him rocked, but Poirier had issues with that long frame and those leg kicks. Just like you said, he used those leg kicks against Poirier, and then Poirier ran up slowing down himself and then sort of come to Oliveira. I think Justin Gaethje is a different breed here because I feel like he has good cardio. You saw that in the Chandler fight. Even though he's throwing all those shots, he was able to keep the momentum throughout all 3 fights. But then he has that wrestling background that he uses. And it's not like he focuses on it. He uses the wrestling as like a backup, like it complements his striking on the feet. And then he trains with Kamaru Usman. Those 2 guys are like big time training partners together. So he's been picking Usman's brain, getting ready for this fight, and he's been prepping this fight the right way that he should. And he does know that Oliveira has those holes in his game where he leaves himself open and he gets hit. And I think that if he gets that chance early on, he's going to capitalize because there's been 3 straight fights where Oliveira has been popped round 1 and he's had to recover from him. And Gaethje's the guy that when he pops somebody, he smells blood and he attacks. Whereas Chandler and Poirier didn't do right by their shots. They were too lackadaisic, I guess you would say, and they allowed Oliveira to recover quickly and then take over. And I think Gaethje is going to get this fight done in round 1. I got Gaethje round 1 knockout here, but I do think that the longer the fight goes, it does favor Oliveira because he does have good cardio, leg kicks, like you said. But then he has that long frame where he can grapple you, get a guy when he's tired, and then just submit him. But I think Gaethje's leg kicks are going to also present a threat towards Oliveira. He's going to be a guy throwing leg kicks, whereas like Poirier did, but he's not to the level of Gaethje. Gaethje has those, like he hurt Michael Chandler with those leg kicks, those power leg kicks. And I think he's going to be okay with grappling up with Oliveira, like on the cage. And that's going to be the difference.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a good fight, number 1. But the only way I see Gaethje winning is by knockout. Oliveira's got the 4-inch reach advantage. That's going to work the jabs in the later rounds. It's going to set up a possible takedown. This has fight in the night written all over it. Anytime Gaethje fights, it's fight in the night. Going to be a great fight. We're on opposite sides, like we were in the Vicente Luque and Bilal Muhammad fight, and I think as we were in the previous 2 matchups. So we'll see where we go. But this is going to be a good fight, and then there's a lot of what ifs in this division that we can talk about at a later episode.
And this is the big key cog in that what ifs here is this matchup. Whoever wins, it's going to create a new outcome. Like if Oliveira wins, it's going to just be okay, next man up here because there's a couple of guys waiting in the wings for him. But if Justin Gaethje wins, then some of the guys that have opportunities that haven't fought him will get a chance as well because of Gaethje being the champ now, and then it's just going to present a whole new flavor of craziness to this division with guys like Sarukian and guys like Islam making the trek up to the top 5.
And Benil, can't forget about Dariush,
who's been sitting there ever since he got that victory over Ferguson, waiting for another matchup because
he's hurt.
He was supposed to fight Islam, and then he got hurt a week before the fight. So I'm hoping we still get that matchup at a later date.
I think that's the matchup they're looking for.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the win over Bobby Green was enough to cement Islam as a title contender at the moment.
Me too. But we're both on different sides in this fight. But it's definitely going to make for a great fight. I think it's going to be where it's at for a reason. I think it's going to be candidate for fight of the night here. But this is a loaded card on UFC 274. And I can't wait to watch the card. But that'll wrap things up with tonight's UFC 274 4-card breakdown. Right before we get going, I just want to give a few of my betting odds here for you. I got 3 fights that I'm looking towards to where I like the betting odds here. The first thing is I like Khaos Williams inside the distance. You can go with the knockout here, but with the inside the distance, it helps you out with some of the outcomes, just in case it goes to submission there. I also like Brandon Royval by sub. I feel very confident about that one because every time he wins, it's by sub. And except for the last fight, it's 95% that. And I think Matt Schnell has holes in the game to where he's going to leave himself open to be submitted here. And then the last one I'm going to go with in this one is I'm going to go Justin Gaethje inside the distance here. I think it's either that or you can go, the fight doesn't even go to distance. You just go main event inside the distance here, because either way, I think Justin Gaethje wins by knockout or Charles Oliveira wins by submission. So,
right.
I'm gonna go with fight goes inside the distance.
3 great picks. So if you're
Yeah.
got a couple dollars you want to throw out there, take Cage's idea and go with those 3 picks.
But other than that, before we get going, I just want to get a shout out again to our sponsor, High Tide Herbal. Use promo code CageMyIQ10 at checkout to receive 10% off your next purchase. And of course, please, if you haven't done so already, like I said before, hit the subscribe button down below. Also, hit the like button as well. We appreciate that. And then, of course, hit us up in the comment section and let us know what you think of our picks. And give us what your picks on who you're going to go with betting wise on UFC 274. We appreciate that. But other than that, I'm your host, Cage. This is my co-host, Jim. And we will see you guys next week for another edition of Cage My IQ. Thanks for tuning in.